Kofi was an old man who loved his family deeply, especially his daughters. Though 60 years had walked upon his shoulders, bending his back like a walking stick, he still woke early each day and swept his yard with the vigor of a young man. One morning, as he held his broom in his right hand, something strange happened. His hand began to shake. At first, the trembling was small, like a leaf fluttering in a soft breeze, but soon it worsened. His fingers could no longer hold the broom firmly. His legs started to drag behind him, refusing to follow. He tried to stand still, but the ground seemed to spin beneath him. Then, suddenly, he collapsed to the ground like a heavy sack of sand. His eyes rolled back, his mouth opened, but no words came out, not even a cry. Nia, his wife, heard the commotion and rushed outside. "Kofi has collapsed," she screamed. Neighbors poured out of their homes and gathered around him. His body was cold, his mouth stiff, but his chest still rose and fell in shallow breaths. They lifted him gently, like a broken pot, and rushed him to the nearest clinic in Zurich, but the nurses could only shake their heads. "We don't know what's wrong with him," they said, sending him on to the general hospital. From one hospital to another, from town to city, and from doctor to doctor, no one could explain Kofi's illness. Some whispered it was a stroke. Others suspected poison. A few even feared it was a curse. They tried everything: local herbs, black soap, holy water, candles, anointed oil, but nothing helped. Kofi grew worse. His voice weakened until he could barely speak. His fingers could not even lift a spoon. He could no longer turn his neck or move his legs. He would stare at people with tired eyes, like a man waiting for death's knock. News of Kofi's sickness spread through Zurich like wildfire. People loved to talk, and soon the whispers turned into stories. Groups gathered under mango trees, around firewood stoves, and inside market stalls. "This is no ordinary illness," one woman said, biting her chewing stick. "A man who walked yesterday now lies helpless today." "Maybe he offended a spirit," someone whispered. "Or it's punishment for something from long ago," added an old man, nodding slowly like a wise tortoise. Even children playing with sand pointed to Kofi's compound and said, "That's the house of the cursed man." At first, it was just talk, but soon everyone believed it. Kofi's legs were stiff like firewood. He couldn't sit or hold a spoon. His back was bent like a broken bench. His words came out scattered like wind-blown papers. His clothes were wet with urine, and his wrappers smelled foul. Flies began to rest on his body as if it were a refuge bin. People stopped visiting. Neighbors came less and less. In the middle of it all, Kofi lay quiet and still, like a statue that once lived. Nobody knew what to do. They tried all they could, but the sickness held him like chains. Whispers became stories. Stories grew into fear, and fear turned into silence. Everyone believed one thing: Kofi was under a curse. Long before the sickness, even when Kofi was strong, people did not respect him. He was not rich. He owned no fine clothes or big car. In a town like Zurich, where men bragged about degrees and positions, Kofi had none. He never went to school. No chalk ever touched his fingers, and he didn't even know how to write his name. When men gathered under the meeting tree to discuss village matters, Kofi came early and waited quietly for his turn. But when he tried to speak, they all looked away. "Please, don't waste our time." One would wave his hand as if chasing flies. Even the town crier, Jabari, stopped calling him to meetings. Why call Kofi? What has he to offer? "His head is for carrying baskets, not for talking," Jabari said. So, Kofi became the invisible man. At weddings, people walked past him. At naming ceremonies, they ignored his cup during drinks. At burials, no one asked his opinion. He was there, but not really there. At home, it was worse. His 4 wives treated him like leftover food. They cooked what they liked and went out without asking. They didn't kneel to greet him or serve him water. Even when he coughed, no one looked his way. They saw Kofi not as a husband but as a mistake. Why did I marry this man? The first wife muttered, tying her wrapper tight. He's useless, said the second, plucking her eyebrows in the mirror. The third hissed, even beggars have more sense than this man. The fourth laughed, a sound sharp like a blade. His daughters, Amina, Esh, Imani, and Saad, were beautiful like river fairies, with glowing skin, polished nails, and shining clothes, but their tongues were sharp fire. None had a job or business, but they had rich boyfriends and sugar daddies. Men in big cars honked at night, and the girls ran out giggling. One day, Kofi tried to speak. "My daughters," he said, his voice shaking like a leaf in the wind. Love had packed its bags and left, leaving only insult behind. One morning, as the sun rose and birds sang, inside Kofi's room there was no music, only the smell. He had soiled himself. His clothes and mat were wet. The air was thick, smelling like an open-pit toilet under the hot sun. He tried to speak, "Take me," but the words refused to come. His mouth twisted, his tongue heavy as stone, hands shaking, legs unmoving. His tired eyes blinked slowly as if life was leaving 1 second at a time. His daughters came in, saw the mess, and jumped back. "You smell," one shouted, covering her nose. "Disgraceful old man," another spat. "Is this how you want to die?" laughed the third. None brought water or soap. They slammed the door behind them like a coffin lid. From that day they stopped cooking for Kofi. The pot remained empty. They stopped washing his clothes. He wore the same wet, dirty wrapper for days. The fan in his room stopped turning, the bucket stayed dry, and the food tray stayed clean, not because it was washed, but because it was never used. Only a few neighbors, those with small hearts of kindness, knocked gently. "Here," they whispered, handing him a spoon of rice or a small cup of porridge. Sometimes Kofi didn't eat at all. Sometimes the ants ate more than he did. The man who once stood tall, danced in the rain, and held 4 women in love became a shadow, a forgotten shadow, a mess on a mat, a body left alone, fading in the town of Zuri where voices were loud but hearts were small. In that town lived a quiet woman named Zola. She was not rich, had no gold or fine car, just a small sewing machine and a heart big enough to carry a river. Her husband died 1 year after their wedding, leaving her with nothing but memories and a cold bed. Since then, Zola walked alone, stitching clothes blouses, wrappers, school uniforms. From that little handwork, she fed herself, but her heart refused to shrink. Every morning before the sun rose, Zola would tie her scarf, carry a bowl of water, soap, and towel, and tiptoe to Kofi's house. She didn't knock loudly. She just slipped inside. Kofi would be lying there, eyes half closed, flies dancing above his head, wrapper soaked, skin dry like cracked earth. Zola bent down and lifted him gently, like a mother lifts her sick baby. She washed him slowly and carefully, cleaned the mess, rubbed balm on his skin, and dressed him in fresh wrappers. Then she would bring out a small plate of food. "Eat, Baba Kofi," she would whisper, placing a spoon near his lips. Sometimes he tried to speak, his voice shaking, tears falling. But Zola would smile and say, "Don't talk, just eat." Then she packed her things and said, "I'm going to the shop now," before quietly walking away to her sewing table. But Zola's care didn't end there. At night, when stars yawned and frogs sang behind gutters, she came back with warm food rice, yam, or small soup with dry fish. She sat beside Kofi, fed him again, adjusted his pillow, and sang softly like a lullaby. Kofi would look at her with tired eyes and whisper, "Why ... Why are you helping me?" Zola would smile and say, "Because it's the right thing." Then she would quietly stand, walk out, and disappear into the night. Day after day, Zola came. People of Zuri began to notice. They laughed and whispered, "Look at her, the wife of the sick man. Maybe she wants to inherit his poverty." Another joked, "She must be mad." But Zola never answered. She never raised her voice. She simply carried her food, cleaned his body, smiled her small smile, and left. Even when insults grew louder, she stayed calm like still water. In a world where everyone turned away, Zola was a candle burning in deep darkness. That Sunday, something unbelievable happened that would change Kofi's life forever and make his daughters regret ever treating him like trash. The sky wore white, the clouds were soft, and the air was calm as if something big was coming. Amina, Kofi's eldest daughter, walked into the compound swaying like a queen. Behind her was a man light-skinned, tall, clean-shaven, and dressed like money itself. His perfume came before him, and his wristwatch sparkled like lightning. He stepped out of a shiny black Lexus SUV. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains. "That's a big man," someone whispered. "Manager of a real estate company," another replied. "Amina Dawn hit the jackpot," a third added. They walked into the house laughing, but the moment the man stepped into the room and saw Kofi lying on the mat, weak, dirty, quiet, he stopped. His eyes widened. He blinked once, then again, and then dropped to his knees, both hands on the floor. "Chief Kofi," he cried. "Ah, sir, it's you. My God, it's really you." He looked at Kofi again as if seeing a king in rags. Amina stood like a tree struck by thunder. Her fine wig shifted, lips parted, but no words came. Esh, Imani, and Saad rushed in, confused. "What's happening?" they asked. Jabari, the town crier and elder, turned to them with surprise and anger on his face. "You mean you people live with this man like this and don't know who he is?" They blinked in silence. Jabari stood up slowly. "You don't know who this man is? This is the founder of City Pillar Estates, the man who made me who I am." The room gasped. "The company that owns over 20 estates in this country. The man who gave me my first chance, the one who handed everything to me years ago. My boss, my helper, my father," Jabari's voice broke. "He gave me the company. He said he wanted to go and build a family, a proper family, raise children the right way, away from the noise, away from money. He told me not to tell anyone. He disappeared." Jabari looked around again. "And this is how you treat him?" Silence fell. Even the clock seemed to stop ticking. Kofi didn't speak. He just looked at Jabari. His eyes were wet, lips trembling, but still he said nothing, because sometimes tears speak louder than words. And in that silence, truth stood tall and shame bowed its head. Jabari looked at Kofi, then back at the daughters. "Years ago," he began, "your father owned City Pillar Estates, yes, the same company you see on billboards, TV, and newspapers. Your father built it from dust with his own hands, with his own sweat." The daughters stared. Imani whispered, "It's not possible." But Jabari continued, "One day he called me to his office. He gave me the papers. He said, 'Jabari, take this company, manage it. I want to leave everything. I want to raise a family in peace. I want my children to grow up with values, not pride." His voice dropped low. He said, "If I stay here, women will love me for my money. I don't want to raise spoiled children. I want to build my home in quiet. Let them grow and find their way. When they're ready, they'll find me." He looked at the shocked faces, then said slowly, "This man owns half of the luxury houses in this region." The room gasped. Amina's knees gave way, and she dropped to the floor. "Daddy," she said, her voice like broken glass, lips trembling, eyes filled with tears. The other daughters stood frozen like trees under a heavy storm. Kofi didn't move. He just looked at them with calm on his face but rivers in his eyes. By morning, Zuri was no longer quiet. Mouths moved like drums, feet rushed like the wind. People shouted in the market, "The fool is a billionaire." Kofi, the man who never went to school, the one with urine on his mat. Whispers turned into shouts, shouts into stories. Everyone wanted to see him. Some came to kneel, some to cry, some just to look and say, "Ah, so this is the man Kofi, the one they mocked, the one they ignored." He was behind the gates, towers, and mighty estates they had admired for years. Truth had broken like thunder in the sky. But while the town shook with news, something else was shaking inside Kofi's body. The sickness that had started as a quiet trick to test love had grown teeth, real teeth. Doctors checked him again. One of them removed his glasses, looked at Jabari, and said softly, "6 months left, maybe less." Jabari's heart sank. Zola's eyes filled with tears. Kofi just nodded like he already knew. Then he asked for one thing. "Call them all," he said. "Who?" Jabari asked. "Everyone," Kofi whispered. The town, the neighbors, the ones who helped him, the ones who heard him, they came one by one, 10 by 10, until the compound was full. The sick, the rich, the poor, the proud, the humble, the laughing, the crying, everyone stood together, waiting to hear what the forgotten man had to say. The air that day was heavy like rain clouds full of fire. The compound was packed. Mothers held their children. Fathers folded their arms. Elders stroked their beards. Even the breeze stood still to listen. In the middle sat Kofi, thin as a broomstick, his bones wrapped in old cloth, his hands resting on the arms of a quiet wheelchair. Jabari stood beside him. Zola too. Kofi's lips moved. At first his voice was soft like wind passing through dry leaves, but then it grew clear, sharp, full of truth. "I was looking for love," he said. Everyone leaned in. "But I saw shame. I saw greed. I saw wickedness." His eyes scanned the crowd. His daughters looked down. His wives held their wrappers tight. The people went quiet. Kofi pointed to the crowd. "When I could no longer stand, you left me. When I could no longer talk, you ignored me. When I was smelling like death, only a few remembered I was still breathing." He turned his head to the side. "But the ones who helped me, the ones who brought 1 spoon of food, 1 cup of water, those are the ones who will carry my name." Gasps, whispers, tears. "I will give my wealth," he continued, "to those who showed me heart." Then he called names. One neighbor got a house, another got land. Another got money for his child's school. People began to cry real tears. Then he turned to Zola, the one who never stopped coming, the one who wiped his sores, the one who smiled through pain. "Zola," he said. She looked up, eyes full of water. "From today, you are the CEO of City Pillar Estates." The crowd broke. Some clapped, some fell on their knees, some shouted. Some wept. Zola stood still. Her hands shook. Her heart beat like a talking drum. But Kofi smiled. And in that smile, the whole of Zuri saw what real wealth looked like. Jabari stood beside him. Zola sat near, feeding him small spoons of porridge. Kofi looked at them, a soft smile rising on his lips. Then he turned to Jabari and said, "If she agrees, marry her." Jabari bowed his head deeply. "Yes, sir," he said. Zola looked at Kofi. Her eyes were shy, but her smile was warm like sunrise. Months passed. The wedding was small but full of light. Neighbors danced. Old women clapped. Even the wind seemed to blow gently that day, as if giving its blessing. Zola and Jabari became husband and wife. Together, they ran City Pillar Estates with quiet hands and open hearts. Then one morning, just before dawn, Kofi closed his eyes. He didn't shake. He didn't cry. He just slept and never woke. Peaceful, like a candle finishing its light, not in darkness, but in grace. All of Zuri cried. The same people who once mocked him now wore white and wept like babies. They sang for him. They spoke of him. They told his story to their children. Far away in the big city of Lagos, at the gate of City Pillar headquarters, they placed a golden plaque. It carried his last truth. Respect is the foundation. Not wealth, not education, just heart. And with that, Kofi, who the world called a fool, became a legend. I hope you enjoyed this story from the heart of Zuri. If so, please like the video, comment below what you learned from the tale, and share it with your friends and family. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more powerful African folktales just like this one. Thank you.